Hello everyone, this is Dr. Vundi. For those of you who might be new, I make videos on mental health and wellness. For my subscribers, my day ones, thank you so much for coming back, for subscribing, and for showing me support. I'm just here because of you guys and I'm super grateful. Today I'll be making a video talking about mental health assessments online. I'm sure a majority of you have Googled your symptoms online. It's a very common thing. I won't act like it doesn't happen. And I'm sure when you Googled your symptoms, perhaps you've come across some tests, some assessments. Have you seen tests like, do you have bipolar? Do you have depression? That's what I'm talking about. So they kind of give you a questionnaire where you answer and then at the end they give you results. That's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about what are the advantages of doing these tests. Are there disadvantages? Are there things that we need to look out for? So that's basically what I want to be addressing today. And because I'm an optimist, I want to start with the advantages or the pros of doing these tests. What I've found is that people who are doing these tests are not just sitting around being bored and deciding, oh, let me check if I have depression today. Usually it's because you've been sensing there is something going on with you. You can't put a finger on it. You're feeling some type of way. And you look to the internet because you want some answers. You want a sense of validation, right? And so you do this test and at the end of it, it tells you, perhaps, for example, you have depression. And then you just feel like, you have that sense of that's what that is. You have a label to put on what you've been going through. And I feel like sometimes that sense of relief is something I can encourage because a lot of people feel lost. You can't really put a finger on what you're feeling. And if a test is going to help you at least get a way forward, I'm here for it. I'm all here for it. Yeah. And so that's one of the things I can say is a pro, an advantage of these tests. Something else I've found to be really useful in this test is that at the end of the test, sometimes they usually connect you with a community of people who are going through the same thing. So they kind of connect you with a support group. You can see people who have gone through the same thing. They talk to you. They tell you where they are in their journey. They tell you what they've been going through. And it gives you a sense of, I'm not alone. And I absolutely think that's so important, especially when it comes to mental health. Sometimes it can feel like you're drowning all by yourself. Everybody else is okay. I'm the one I have a problem. There is something wrong with me. But when you connect with other people who are going through the same thing, that sort of support and community is a good prognostic factor, and I'm all here for it. Moving on to the cons, the things that might be not so good about this test is, first and foremost, these tests are not always curated by medical professionals. They're not always prepared by doctors or mental health specialists. So I'm really cautious as to the diagnosis. Sometimes they can overdiagnose or even underdiagnose. You do the test and then it tells you you have bipolar. But then this person who made the test might not be a psychiatrist. So what criteria did they use to diagnose you? So you're here with a huge label. You've been diagnosed as bipolar online, but then turns out it wasn't even bipolar. That's overdiagnosis. Another thing is underdiagnosis, yeah? Because like when you're doing those tests, it's you who's giving the answers. So you might be tempted to not say the truth 100% of the time. And that's what we call bias. You might do the test and you feel like the answer should be yes, but something tells you, no. Just write no. Just tick no. Just tick no. And at the end of the day, it tells you, right, you don't have bipolar. But you are biased when you are doing the test. So it's not an accurate way to get a diagnosis. You might be underdiagnosed, which is very dangerous because you'll be walking around like, oh, I don't have bipolar. I'm good. But then, you were not very honest when you were taking the test. Rather, you were biased. And so eventually your condition will worsen and you might find yourself in a worse off place because you sort of lied to yourself. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, that's overdiagnosis and underdiagnosis because of bias. Then again, we move on to the fact that then what? You've been given a diagnosis, you have bipolar, you have depression, then what? I feel like sometimes getting a diagnosis should always be done in person by a medical professional, because it gives them the opportunity to discuss with you, what do we do next? What are the treatment options? And you can ask them questions, they can respond. Because if you've done a test online and you've gotten a diagnosis, it's so heavy, it's so stressful. It can even tip you off into an even worse off depressed state. It might even tip you off into a manic episode. So I feel like it leaves you stranded. Like, what do I do with this information? And so I would rather, because of that aspect of discussing your treatment options, what next, you asking questions about the disease, like, how did I get this? What are the factors that can contribute it to worsen? That you lose that sense, that personal touch when you do it online. And lastly, there's something I wanted to talk about in terms of the role of a psychiatrist. Why it's important to get a diagnosis from a psychiatrist. You see, mental illness has got so many underlying issues. There are so many things that could be contributing, for example, to your depression. So fine, you get the diagnosis that you have depression. But do you know that there are medical conditions that could be contributing to depression? Thyroid issues, even brain tumors. So if you get the diagnosis online and then you miss this whole background, these intricate details I'm speaking of, these contributing factors, you can miss out on the treatment being adequate, because you might think that all you need to do is to go and see a therapist, but yet the reason why you're having depression is because you've got a thyroid issue. So you can do therapy from January to December and it won't work. It won't work because the reason you're having depression is because you have a thyroid issue. So I hope that makes sense, and I'm not completely discrediting it, and that's why I started with the pros. But I'm saying, in summary, when you're doing these tests, please follow up with a mental health professional, preferably a psychiatrist, so that they can be able to pick out some of these things that I was mentioning. It's supposed to be a holistic kind of care. It's not, you can't diagnose yourself, treat yourself, explain the disease to yourself. It has to be done by somebody who's actually trained to do it. So I hope this video has been super helpful. Please let me know in the comment section or even in my DMs. I'll link down my socials below. Let me know what's your experience with these tests, and I'll really appreciate the feedback. Once again, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time when I put out another video on mental health and wellness. And yeah, I'm wishing you guys an amazing week ahead. Take care of yourselves. Bye.